Welcome back from the break, everyone. And once again, I hope that you're all doing as well as possible. This is our Dharma talk portion of our weekly People of Color Sangha meeting. And today is March 28th in the year 2024. If we're in the United States, big election year, and a lot is going on. As most of you probably know, the Buddhist teachings and practices, which we're based in here at East Bay Meditation Center, are often called the Dharma. Dharma teachings, Dharma practices. Buddhism is a global faith tradition. It's considered a non-religion by many because it's not theistic. My original teacher, Korean monk, Zen monk, Samu Sinim, used to say, "We are the religion of no religion." However, we are a global faith tradition. The title of my talk is, "That's Dharma?" Question mark, exclamation point. Navigating differences in the spirit of adventure. I'm going to invite us all to put on our adventurer's hat. And as you probably know, East Bay Meditation Center is an urban meditation center, and we were specifically founded to be an intentionally diverse community and also a spiritual community that is centered around social justice. If we're diverse, we need to learn how to navigate differences. If we're all the same, usually no problem. However, thus it is not so in almost any group. And so if you and I are different and it's not a problem, then there is no issue. If you and I are different and we have friction and tension and conflict, then how do we deal with it? In the description of the talk, I said, as a Buddhist teacher, I have been quoted as saying, and I have said, it's a big, bad Buddhist world out there. I've been practicing for over 40 years. I am a former monastic, and I know whereof I speak. Like any global faith tradition, the worldwide Buddhist community, if there is such a thing, is full of diversity of thought, diversity of practices, diversity of power dynamics, and great diversity of cultural expression. As we mature, this talk is aimed at those of us perhaps who've been practicing for a while, and if we're beginning our journey to perhaps plant some seeds about how we might navigate what lies ahead. As we mature in our Dharma practice, can we open to discovery, delight, and a certain amount of disgust in encountering ways of being that are very different from our own, in this case, East Bay Meditation Center culture? As Dharma explorers and adventurers, I am inviting us to be explorers and adventurers. We can, as our agreements for multicultural interactions say, quote unquote, try it on. What that means is we don't have to agree with someone else's worldview. However, if we say, I don't like your worldview and go away, we never learn more about them. Can we become curious in order essentially to gain more information? Is that such a bad thing? Again, we don't have to buy what they may be trying to sell us. However, we might choose to learn more about it. Might we try on new ways of being, doing, and connecting to the spiritual realm and each other in order to deepen our practice of loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, equanimity, just to learn more cool stuff. And we can make many new spiritual friends along the way if your journey is anything like mine. So the question is, that's Dharma? And I promised you some insights from my personal experience into 3 Ds: discovery, delight, and a certain amount of disgust. We're going to frame all of this with a invitation and exhortation from my original teacher, Korean Zen master Samu Sinim. He passed away some years ago in his temple in Chicago. His original temple was in Toronto. He did immigrate from Korea into Toronto, started a temple there. I helped to found his second temple in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and then he went on and he and his students created a temple in Chicago, one in New York City, and there was also a center in Mexico City. And Samu Sinim, who was fluent in English, used to say that our approach to practice is this. He said, bring a great, hearty mind, Hearty. That contains the word heart. According to the internet, hearty means full, ample, laden with good ingredients or positive thoughts. Applied to things other than food, it can mean sincere or energetic. A warm, firm, friendly handshake is a hearty handshake. A lamb stew in rich gravy that's loaded with flavor is a hearty dinner. So we get the idea. This is not being delicate and tiptoeing around. It's not being insensitive either. It's bringing a certain amount of vigor and, yes, I will say it, sort of a mature toughness to our practice in order to learn and absorb more of what the heck's out there, as well as learn more and absorb what the heck's in here. That takes a hearty mind as well, if you're like me. Therefore, I was formed as a Buddhist practitioner by my teacher, Samu Sinim. Sinim means Korean monk or nun. When I was a Korean nun in the Korean tradition, I was Mushim Sinim. So Sinim means venerable. It's a gender-inclusive title. His Buddhist name was Samu, S-A-M-U. So I was formed by his passion for exploring North American Buddhism. It was his favorite thing, and to have an adventurer mindset. The mindset of the adventurer is, it's actually not about liking things. It's about learning, being an explorer, and being surprised and interested in things and scenes and people and happenings that are entirely new to us. Like, whoa, that's amazing. And it might, that amazing thing that we're observing might be horrifying. It might be amazingly enticing and attractive. It might be just full of information that we don't even begin to know how to process. It's actually, this mindset of the explorer is actually the opposite of a type of Dharma study and practice that produces a tailor-made for us as individuals version of a huge and diverse global faith tradition. It is only natural. Most people who are not born into Buddhist families come to the practice, in our case, the practice of meditation, of being in Sangha, community together. Most of us come because we're suffering. People who are perfectly happy, if there are any, do not care about the Dharma because they don't need it. They are happy. They're going to go on their merry way, and good for them. And as we begin to progress and perhaps our own suffering begins to decrease a little, we start feeling a little better, then it's really good to look around a little and see what else is out there among people who may self-identify as Dharma practitioners as we do, and to say, are they like me? Are they unlike me? I am curious. Okay, so that is the first D, discovery. We are discoverers. The second D is delight. I'm remembering back to, I was fortunate enough to go on my adventure seeking with my adventure seeking original teacher on several pilgrimages with him in North American Buddhism. The most lengthy one was, I believe, in December going into maybe January of 1984 to 1985. A bunch of his students from Canada and from the Michigan temple, we all traveled down to Mexico City in order to do a 5-day meditation retreat with some Mexican Zen practitioners who had connected to our teacher. And then everybody left and went home except for one of the teacher's most senior students, and I myself. I was not a senior student, and we borrowed an unheated Mexican Volkswagen and drove from Mexico City up into California, and then we turned right and we went across the United States through the Rocky Mountains, visiting every Buddhist center that we could find in the Yellow Pages. That was pre-internet days. We just visited and visited and visited. It was an incomparable education, which has formed me. I'm like a little duckling. I was imprinted by the spirit of, look, there's a place where people are practicing Dharma. Let's check it out. So, delight. On this pilgrimage, I remember we stopped, of course, in San Francisco, filled with Buddhist groups. Amazing, amazing, amazing. And we visited the temple of the oldest national Buddhist organization in the United States. It is originally a Japanese immigrant, now much more diverse organization called the Buddhist Churches of America, the BCA. And so their old temple was in San Francisco, and they gave us a tour, and I remember in particular being so delighted by the children's, they have Sunday school programs and classrooms for the kids. And the teachers of these children's groups are very organized. I've done diversity training for them. They are committed volunteer educators. And they all love kids. And so there were these nice rooms, and they were all had great bulletin boards, and it just was obvious, and toys, and such a welcoming, wonderful, playful atmosphere for the children to sing songs and hear stories and get to know each other. I was deeply impressed. I'd never seen anything like that. The temple that I was helping to found, the Zen Buddhist Temple, Ann Arbor, Michigan, which has grown over the past, I was there in 1982, and since then it has grown to be a compound of several buildings. They've all been renovated, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. They have a children's camp every summer, many programs. You can check them out on the website, Zen Buddhist Temple, Ann Arbor in Michigan. And at that time, we had zero money. We were living, it was Michigan. We had a wood stove on the main floor in the dining room. Otherwise, everything was unheated. And looking back, I really don't know why our pipes didn't freeze. I guess there was good plumbing. And we were in the process of renovating this old two-story house, large house, into a beautiful Buddhist temple, and sharing it at that time with a large and hardy population of cockroaches. We did have families. Our children lived in the basement so that when they played, it wouldn't be so loud. And the basement was unheated. These were not ideal conditions for children. We didn't have any programs for children at the time. And therefore, when I saw these warm and cozy and beautiful classrooms for the children at the Buddhist church in San Francisco, again, part of the BCA, I was happy. I was I was just delighted. I was happy. Such a revelation, and I don't know, I've kept that vision to this day. Before the pandemic, East Bay Meditation Center had some thriving family practice programs for adults with young children. I was one of the group of teachers. Always loved it. A lot of fun. A lot of screaming kids running around, which I'm used to. I'm a parent myself, and my child attended a co-op preschool here in Oakland. Life being what it is, we'll come to my final D, the third D, which is disgust. If we decide that we want to learn more about the big bad Buddhist world and the big good Buddhist world, yes, there will be things we do not like. So if you do this, stay safe. You're an adventurer. Stay safe. Be a safe adventurer. And we might challenge ourselves. Hey, try it on. I don't need to like this. I don't need to buy it. Where are these people coming from? Or just like, whoa, that's really, really different. Where does the disgust come from? In traditional Buddhism, in Asia, there is and has been probably a great deal of misogyny, homophobia, transphobia for sure. And they tend to be hierarchical power arrangements. Things are organized hierarchically in the Confucian-based countries such as Japan, Korea, China, and also pretty hierarchical in Thailand, Sri Lanka, and so forth. There I was, innocent little Mushim, and accompanying my teacher and his senior student, who was a Canadian woman originally from Quebec. And we dropped in a tiny Thai temple near Denver, Colorado. This was during the winter time, so it was very cold, and it was actually a small suburban house, I think. It was nice and warm inside because the Thai monks dress very lightly. Their traditional robes are, of course, based in a warm climate. And I don't know, there were about like four monks there, living there in this small house, which they had made into probably a rather traditional Thai Buddhist temple. Our teacher, being a monk, was whisked off to have a meeting with somebody in another part of the house. And so the other senior student, the other student who was senior, I was junior, I was the secretary of the voyage, I wrote down everything, sat in the living room, politely waiting. We were not monastics, neither were we lay people. Our teacher said, you're kind of a little bit of both, and you are lay monastics. In this case, however, we did live under a vow of complete poverty and renunciation, so probably closer to monastics. In any case, we did have hair, we didn't have our head shaved, and we were dressed in, I think, a gray Korean monastic Buddhist clothing. And sitting on this couch, and there was a kind of a lazy boy reclining chair opposite us, and a very elderly, kind of elderly Thai monk, male monk, came in, sat down in the chair, and proceeded to light up a cigarette. Now, I was very innocent. I did not know that some monks, not in my lineage, however, in Thailand for sure, are allowed to smoke cigarettes. And some said they smoke like chimneys. This was the first thing I did, and I thought, oh my gosh. So he puffed on his cigarette. He kind of leaned back rolled himself back in the reclining chair, and then he just stared at us rudely. He just stared at us, basically undressing us, I am sorry to say, with his eyes. I don't think he spoke English. And he was very senior, and so in that system, he could do anything he damn well pleased. Sujata and I were modern North American women. However, what could we do? We were on his turf, so to speak. So we just sat there and tried to look kind of neutral. And luckily, we were rescued by a younger Thai monk. So they weren't all like this. This is part of the lesson. There was a younger Thai monk. He knew exactly what was going on. He was clearly embarrassed on behalf of his order. And he invited us out into the entryway for a little bit of conversation, to exchange some information, and was just very friendly and very respectful. I was disgusted. And I learned something from it. Otherwise, I would have just gone on my innocent way, thinking, oh no, monks don't behave like that. Some of them do, and some of them don't. Diversity can also mean abundance. If we're not choosing to learn more differences as well as samenesses, then pickings are kind of slim. We can look at it that way. Diversity means abundance. It means more knowledge and understanding on a wider scale versus what we want personally. Therefore, my invitation to all of us is to practice in the service of learning about the world, of seeing a bigger picture. This means perspective, maturity, proportionality, meaning human beings in proportion to history and to the larger universe, to what we call nature. And we are part of nature. However, if we think, oh, there's me and there's nature, oh, that's kind of a weird separation. Plants, animals, birds, fish, insects, fungi, bacteria. And there's a lot of life out there. As we gain this bigger picture, our hearts expand, our minds expand, our knowledge expands. There's just general expansion, and our view becomes so much bigger. A common metaphor in the spiritual life is the view from the mountaintop. We can usually, if we climb to the top of a mountain on a clear day, we can see, as the song says, for miles and 360 degrees. Wow, our world the view can be amazing. It can be worrisome. It can blow us away, Even if we don't get a view, We might be able to see the tops of the clouds. How cool is that? And this is not specific to Buddhism. Martin Luther King Jr.'s last speech, the famous last speech, "I've been to the mountaintop," which was delivered in Memphis, Tennessee on April 3rd, 1968, the day before he was assassinated, contains these well-known words, which have always been very moving to me, and I feel apply to us now. "Well, I don't know what will happen now," Dr. King said. "We've got some difficult days ahead, but it doesn't matter to me now, because I've been to the mountaintop, and I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I've seen, in other words, the goal, where we're trying to head." Dr. King said, "I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we, as a people, will get to the promised land. And I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything." I'll let the quote end there. There's more to that famous speech, and that's always been something that it comes back to me again and again. I have been to the mountaintop. I'll end this Dharma talk by inviting us all, whatever your mountain is, whatever your landscape is, can you invite yourself to become an explorer, to have that great hearty mind, to say, I'd like to have a safe enough adventure and find out more what's out there in the larger world. Whether I agree or disagree, whether I like it or not, whether I'm delighted or disgusted, I'm going to use all this learning to help my people. Thank you very much for your kind attention.